The girl you see pictured here is 13-year-old Nicole Lovell. On January 27, 2016, her mother's life changed dramatically. When she opened the door to her daughter's room, she had no idea what secrets lurked behind that door. The disappearance of Nicole from Blacksburg, Virginia prompted an urgent search. Nicole needed her life-saving medication and couldn't go without it for more than a day. Everyone was shocked to learn that the girl had made the decision to run off into the unknown on her own that night. During the search, horrifying details were revealed that changed the course of the case. The police initially tried to question the last person who saw Nicole alive, but then it became clear that it was more important to find her body. The events outside her bedroom door raised many questions. Why did Nicole run away from her home? This story of the disappearance and tragic death of a young Blacksburg resident in January 2016 has left indelible marks in the minds of her loved ones. It was cold and snowy that night in West Virginia. To some, it may have been a beautiful landscape, but to Nicole Lovell's parents, it was a symbol of anxiety and fear. One frosty January night, Nicole ran away from home and never returned. On the night of January 26, 2016, Nicole's mother, Femi, sent her 13-year-old daughter to bed. In the morning, when she went to wake her up for school, the nightmare began. Despite her best efforts, the door to her daughter's room would not open and Nicole would not respond to her calls. Temi didn't know that by closing her daughter's bedroom door at night, she was unknowingly contributing to the beginning of an entirely different plan. Nicole stealthily moved the dresser to the door, thus beginning her preparations to escape. Unlike most teenagers, she had other plans. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, she opened her bedroom window, grabbed a dark blue blanket with a picture of Minions, her backpack and cell phone, and took off into the night. The question immediately arises. Where did Nicole go, and why did she decide to make this unexpected escape? Many questions swarmed in the mind of her mother. But she didn't hesitate. As soon as it became clear that her daughter was missing, she immediately reported it to the Blacksburg police. Nicole's family was desperate to solve the mystery of her disappearance. Where was Nicole and how was she feeling? Questions of concern and the need to find their beloved daughter became paramount. Local TV stations and radio stations immediately reported the girl missing. Police, fire and rescue personnel began an urgent search throughout the neighborhood. Local, state and federal agencies became involved. However, there was another side to Nicole's life. A dark chapter that complicated the unfolding story. Nicole couldn't go long without the medications that were vital to her. She was born with a damaged liver, and even before her first year of life, she required a transplant. Despite the successful surgery, as a teenager she had to take medication twice a day to prevent the disease from progressing. Skipping even a few pills could lead to serious, potentially fatal problems, which was the biggest concern for her family. Finding Nicole became a top priority, as every hour without medication brought her closer to danger. The FBI teamed up with local authorities and state police to find Nicole. Information about her disappearance was spread throughout the county. Many people who knew the area well, especially the forests and mountains, joined the search. Students from the University of Virginia were not left out either, who even brought in drones to search from an altitude. Cadets from Virginia Tech also took part in the search. Everyone worked together, desperately trying to do everything they could to find 13-year-old Nicole. As the search continues across the region, a candlelight vigil was held for the girl and her family. Hundreds of people gathered outside her home, praying for her safe return and expressing unwavering support for her family and each other. As each day passed, there was no news of Nicole, and the big question remained, where could she be? It didn't take long for the answer to come. 3 days later, on January 30th, 2016, Nicole's parents were faced with the most devastating news of their lives. The remains of missing 13-year-old Nicole Lovell had been found. With a heavy heart, the police officer reported, "We have located the remains of 13-year-old Nicole Lovell. Her lifeless, naked body was found in the woods on an embankment just over the state line, just off Interstate 89 in North Carolina. To those unfamiliar with the area, it might have seemed like a remote location, but it was actually close to a fairly busy road. All the residents were in shock, but for Nicole's mother, her life seemed ruined in a matter of minutes. The question of who could have committed such a horrible act against the girl was on everyone's mind. Searching for answers, Temi received disturbing news from a neighbor. She said that Nicole had been playing with her daughters before her disappearance and had accidentally mentioned a secret rendezvous with a man. She talked about her boyfriend, who was 18 years old and in college, showing several text messages and photos. 13-year-old Nicole had a secret date planned for the night of January 26, 2016, which caused her to run away from home. On January 27, 2016, when police were searching her home, they came across an important piece of evidence in her bedroom. Nicole had left the key to solving the mystery right on the wall of her room, writing the usernames and passwords of her online application accounts. FBI computer experts looked into this information and quickly discovered that Nicole frequently used a socializing app popular with teenagers. These sites allow people to communicate with people anonymously, without the family's knowledge, which makes them dangerous because criminals can operate there. Temi told investigators that shortly before her disappearance, she discovered the app on her daughter's phone and forced her to delete it. However, it became clear that Nicole had returned to the apps and used them frequently. The usernames and passwords she wrote down became the key to solving this horrific case. Nicole's personality reflected the difficulties many teenagers face. She felt misunderstood and unloved, craved attention, and wanted to be seen as an adult. Nicole craved recognition, especially regarding her appearance, because she found her surgery scars unattractive. These details helped investigators understand why Nicole ran away. Her desire to find acceptance and love led to dangerous interactions with the man she thought was her boyfriend. Unfortunately, these online interactions, lacking proper supervision, left her vulnerable to the dangers that led to the tragic outcome. The experts went into Nicole's account and looked at her posts, photos, and other material to see what she was doing besides socializing with her school friends and family. One of her friends reported that Nicole was supposed to have a secret date that night. The FBI urgently requested access to Nicole's personal account from the app, using an emergency disclosure request. This led to an unexpected discovery. It turned out that she had last communicated with a person signed as Dr. Tom Stone. The FBI's cyber unit dug deeper and discovered that the username belonged to a man named David and was linked to a Gmail account. Following the digital trail, they found an 18-year-old young man named David Eisenhower. David was a freshman at Virginia Tech, which attracted him with its excellent engineering program. At Wade Lake High School, near Baltimore, Maryland, he was an outstanding track and field athlete and was named Athlete of the Week in the local news his senior year. At first glance, David looked like any other freshman at a large institution. He had a habit of telling unusual stories, trying to seem more experienced and knowledgeable about the world than he really was. People began to doubt the veracity of his words because he was very eager to impress others, which quickly led to distrust. He was cocky and would say, "Yes, I'm David Eisenhower. I was just featured on the local news." On January 29, 2016, the police called David in for questioning, even before Nicole's body was found. He was summoned because he was the last person to see Nicole alive. At first, the interrogation seemed routine. The detective informed David of Nicole's disappearance, mentioning that they knew she had been out with him that night. David stated that when he had picked Nicole up from her house that night, he hadn't realized that she was only 13 years old. He also said that he left after meeting her. But the detective thought that was odd. It couldn't have been that simple, especially since it was after that Nicole went missing. At this point, the detective challenged David, sensing there was more to the story. At first, the guy denied that he had any further information about Nicole, claiming that he had never seen her or corresponded with her after they met. After a while, he made a strange comment that aroused suspicion and that made him the prime suspect in Nicole's disappearance. David was arrested immediately after the interview, and it was determined that he would be held in custody while officers continued their investigation. The detective picked up on a hidden clue during the interrogation when David said he went to his girlfriend's house immediately after leaving Nicole. His girlfriend was called in for questioning. She was Natalie Keepers, a student at Virginia Tech studying engineering. She had moved from eastern Maryland to the mountains of West Virginia. The 20-year-old had a brief relationship with David, but their connection soon developed into a close friendship. As the interrogation progressed, investigators downloaded information from David and Natalie's phones. Then cyber unit personnel, including police officers and the FBI, analyzed the data and came across some startling text messages exchanged between David and Natalie. The exchanges between the students at the technical school were ominous in nature. They discussed how to wash off the blood, talked about its odor, and even mentioned hiding the crime scene. Such topics were not typical of these young people. When these messages got to Natalie, she couldn't stand it any longer and confessed everything. She told the truth. David had killed Nicole and she had helped him. Over the next few hours, Natalie told the eerie story of what happened to Nicole on the night of January 26, 2016, and why it happened. The story began in the fall of 2015 when David and Nicole met online. They quickly became attracted to each other. Interestingly, David always thought Nicole was 16 or 17 years old. As they continued to communicate, they arranged to meet in December. Nicole could no longer hide her age, and perhaps David was surprised when they met, but decided not to pay attention to it. Growing feelings pushed them to a risky step, and this meeting was the beginning of a chain of events, the consequences of which neither of them could have foreseen. After the meeting, David's behavior changed dramatically. He felt that he had crossed a line that could not be changed. Terror gripped him as he realized the possible consequences of his actions and what they might bring upon him. David admitted to his friend Natalie that he had a problem, and his problem was none other than Nicole. He was concerned that she was underage, and he worried that she might get pregnant after their first meeting. Fearing trouble with the law, he tried to put the brakes on their relationship and cut off communication with Nicole. Expected move. She threatened to commit suicide if he ended their relationship. And Natalie came to the conclusion that a drastic solution was needed. The only way out, they believed, was to kill Nicole. David and Natalie needed certain materials to carry out their horrible plan. The day before Nicole's disappearance, they went to a local Walmart store. Security cameras captured them leaving the store with a purchase: a large garden shovel. They had no way of knowing that this shovel would become a fatal piece of evidence, linking them to the crime. Nicole's blood would later be found on it. Natalie, in an attempt to exonerate herself, claimed she was not present at the murder, but admitted her involvement in the plan. On January 26, 2016, David and Nicole met. The plan was simple: take her to a secluded location under the guise of a romantic date. Nicole, having developed an escape plan, waited impatiently for David to arrive. When he showed up, taking her favorite blanket, backpack, and phone, she hopped out of the house and into his car. The couple headed to a spa on Creek Road, not far from the Virginia Tech campus. This narrow, winding road through a wooded area, with houses and trailers scattered far away, created an atmosphere of solitude. On that cold night, with the temperature dropping rapidly, they drove down a dark and deserted road for about an hour or two. David stopped the car in a secluded spot and they both got out into the cold. Nicole had no idea what awaited her in this remote location. David's horrific actions became known from Nicole's autopsy report. It became clear that he had hit her in the neck with a shovel, breaking one of her vertebrae, and then stabbed her to death in cold blood. He had killed her in the woods, without a shadow of a doubt, leaving her breathless body out of sight. After Nicole fell to the ground, David did not hesitate to stab her 14 times. 7 of the stab wounds were to her head and face, the other 7 to her chest. The fatal blow was to the throat. Nicole, who had bravely undergone liver transplant surgery and was dear to her family, tragically died on a lonely and cold January night, the victim of a ruthless murder. Horrified by what he had done, David placed Nicole's lifeless body in the trunk of his car with her belongings and returned home. No one noticed anything suspicious on the road that fateful night, and the murder went unnoticed. The next day, January 27th, David texted Natalie, setting their sinister plan in motion. They got into David's car and drove to a secluded spot on the North Carolina border. Driving along Highway 89, the pair found a suitable spot. They pulled Nicole's body out, separated it, and washed it thoroughly to erase all traces of the crime. Afterward, they dumped the remains on a wooded slope. Text messages exchanged between David and Natalie revealed that they hoped the cold weather would help minimize the smell of blood, and in such a remote area, nature would handle the disposal of the body on its own. Prior to the murder, David had also conducted several online searches, looking for answers to questions such as, how long does it take to burn a body? And what data do police use for identification? His attempt to find the right answers played a fatal role in his downfall. When Nicole's body was discovered, it had thankfully remained perfectly intact up to that point. Now, in addition to electronic media and words, the police had physical evidence of the murder in their hands. Forensic experts pieced the evidence together to find out who was really responsible for Nicole's tragic fate. During a thorough search of the place where Nicole's body was found, investigators uncovered important evidence. Pieces of skin were found under her fingernails that had gone unnoticed during David and Natalie's attempts to wash the body. These tiny pieces of skin turned out to be key DNA evidence showing that Nicole had scratched David before her tragic end. In search of evidence, police officers and forensic investigators turned their attention to trash cans and bins at Virginia Tech. The dive team also dived into a body of water on campus and discovered an Unexpected find. A bottle of cleaning product and many napkins covered in brown stains. These finds led to speculation about their involvement in Nicole's murder. The investigation took a chilling turn when traces of blood were found in the trunk of David's car. Potentially the most serious evidence, however, was found in a bag found among Natalie's belongings. Neatly hidden in it were Nicole's blood-stained clothes and a blanket with a picture of Mignon on it. David got into serious trouble when he was formally arrested on January 29th. Natalie was arrested and charged 2 days later on the 31st. The charges included their involvement in Nicole's kidnapping and murder, body snatching, and disposal. Faced with the charges, David and Natalie pleaded not guilty. Finally, in June 2018, David went to trial and was found guilty on all charges. The sentence was 10 years for kidnapping, 60 years for first-degree murder, and an additional 5 years for hiding Nicole's body. However, 15 years of that sentence was vacated, and he received 50 years in prison. He was also ordered to pay $5,000 in restitution. In September 2018, the court sentenced Natalie Keepers, finding her guilty of accessory to first-degree murder. She received 40 years in prison for accessory after the fact, and 5 years for hiding the body. However, 5 years of that sentence was vacated. David and Natalie are destined to spend most of their lives behind bars, but no punishment will bring Nicole Lovell back. Like so many other teenagers, she longed only for acceptance and love, but that opportunity was tragically taken from her. Now her family suffers from incurable wounds that have left a gaping void in their hearts. That cold January night not only devastated the town of Blacksburg, but left a deep mark on the souls of all its residents. Thank you for watching. Next time, we'll have something even more interesting for you, so subscribe and stay tuned for updates. Until next time.